click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasin the Racin.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin the Racin, episode 112. And we're up at Knock Hill Racing Track, and it's the night before race day. It's the condensed
the night
meeting.
Before Christmas, gentlemen.
And we're joined by, and I'll get this right, Bournemouth Kawasaki / Hel Performance team owner and rider. So I've got Dave Tyson and Luke Mossey. How are we doing, lads?
Very
Good,
well.
thank you.
Spot on. And
by the way, did we get that in the right order there? And by we, I mean him. That was the correct order. There you go. That's
that was all right.
fantastic. Envelopes to be handed over in no time. Under the table, over the table job.
We'll start with it. Obviously, it's a new team. I know, Luke, it was a very sort of last minute thing, and you've had plenty of teams with different manufacturers and stuff. But how did this arrangement get sorted for this season?
Well, originally, obviously, the plan was that we were going to run Luke in Superbike with Jack in Supersport. That was the initial outset that we did last year. Unfortunately, the sponsor that we had in place didn't happen, fell apart on the last minute. We were due to get the signed contract on the Friday, and I think the Thursday night it fell apart, didn't it?
Mm.
So Luke...
is this before the first meeting then?
Yeah, this was back in February, so just before we were going testing. Bike was built, done. We were waiting, obviously, a new bike come through and whatever, but we had a bike that we could have gone with. But it's sort of just literally on the last minute they told us that they'd fell out with their importer, and that no more of their product was coming into the UK for this year. So at that point they can't promote anything to sell anything. So it was a pretty much dead in the water done deal. So. And
is it a case of did Hel and Pete sort of come on board to save the day type of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we'd been doing a bit with Pete anyway, with Luke anyway, and previous year with the Superbike. Because obviously we bought one of the old Bournemouth bikes, and he wanted to get involved in a bit with Jack, because obviously he sort of thought that Jack could be somewhere near close to winning the championship. And then when it sort of Luke had another opportunity that he explored, unfortunately that wasn't able to come off, and then we all got together and had a tin of beans around the fireplace, and there we are, really. And then
please tell me there was actually a tin of beans involved. This is generally, you know what I mean? You were like,
sausage
carry on camping. You lot talking BSB super deals. You know what I mean? Going, we've got Mossey, hand me the Heinz. Branston. Get out my studio. Get out my studio. Yeah, I've had enough here.
Speaking of opportunities coming up as well, it must be a bit of a culture shock for you this weekend after getting an opportunity to ride in World Superbikes and bashing fairings with the likes of Eugene Laverty and Bautista, and then sort of 5-6 days later you're up at Knock Hill.
Yeah, last week I had Redding and Johnny Ray next to me, and now I've got you and Jack Kennedy. So
it's mad.
Nice. It was fine. We had a good weekend last week. The bike weren't as good as what I thought it was going to be. I was pretty happy with the results we got. I got the team their first points in 2 years. So it was a right weekend. I enjoyed it.
That wasn't the first time you've been on that bike, is it, with a team?
No, I've rode for Pedicini in 18. Again, a wild card, but that was on the older bike. But obviously, I was supposed to be on this year's bike, but we weren't. I was on the 2020 bike last week, which was a little bit disappointing on my behalf, because I didn't know that till the Thursday when I got there.
Right.
So it was a little bit frustrating, but it was all right.
So for our listeners out there, why were you specifically upset about the bike then? What did you expect, kind of thing? There'll be people listening to this going, well, hold on, son, you're on a World Superbike, what's going on?
Well, I heard that Bautista and the Ducatis have 260, and I think ours had 220. So, I actually out-qualified Bautista in qualifying. And then we got into the race, got on the back straight, and he literally come past me so fast, he tore the stickers off the side of the bike. I didn't know really what to say to it. I was so gobsmacked how quick it was, and it was just a little bit frustrating because half that paddock, I don't think that they're actually any better than me. Without sounding big-headed or arrogant, I don't think they're actually any better than me. It's just that their bikes are about £1 million, and ours was probably worth about 40 grand. So just a little bit different, but it's always a good experience. We enjoyed it. We got some points, good for the team as well. Obviously, getting their first points in 2 years. Good for Kawasaki, so it was all right. I'd rather be doing it than sitting at home watching it, shall we say? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, you've had a lot of experience riding the Kawasaki and British Superbikes with totally different rules to the World Superbikes. How did it compare? Like, not comparing it against, like, say, Bautista's bike, but comparing it against the other Kawasaki's you've ridden in BSB.
The biggest thing is the traction. I mean, they run full Minarelli traction control, and obviously in BSB,
one of the best named products ever.
Exactly.
Minarelli.
And then you have just Motec with no traction, so it's all more in your right wrist sort of thing. And I was trying to get used to the traction, just whacking it on, because I could see Johnny and Top Rat, they're sort of full throttle before they're off the brake at the Melbourne Loop, and it's just hard to try and process that, and it takes so long.
So, like, for example, you get into the Melbourne Loop, if you go 100% throttle, it
does everything for you.
Honestly,
everything for you.
Yeah.
Shut
so
up, man.
The actual thing they measure is from closed throttle to brake, so that needs to be really, really short, or almost an overlay. If you look at Lavity's overlays brilliantly. So he actually brakes and he's actually off the throttle as he's braking, and then he's actually off the brake as he's accelerating. So there's actually an overlay, and all it is you just go bang, open throttle, and then the Morelli just literally just cracks it on and just takes it round. It was better a few years ago when they could run turn by turn.
Mm-hmm.
So you used to be able to map it by GPS by turn. So you used to be able to go, right, engine braking would be, Luke would want it more open in second gear at the final turn. And then we're using second gear at the Melbourne Loop. My buddy wants it more closed. You could do that by turn, but that's come away now.
What sort of lap times did you? I watched the racing and stuff, and I seen how well you did, but I didn't actually clock your lap times.
I've done a 29.8 in the last race, which was the quickest I've done a weekend, but I've actually done a 28.8 there on a BSB bike in 16, so it was a second off that. So
yeah, so
I think if we started the weekend, after the last race on Sunday, I said if we could start the weekend now, I think we could have a lot more better understanding with the bike, and we could have been a bit more further up. But I think around the 15th place mark, really, that's where that bike was at, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So, but it was a good weekend. Like I said, I keep saying it. It was a really enjoyable weekend, and like I said, I'd rather be doing it than watching it at home, because that's the only thing I would have been doing is watching it. So.
Oh yeah. And I just want to mention this, when my first memory of you was back in, I was just started racing in Thundersport, and it was a Donington Park, I think it was Donington Park national meeting, and you get to know all of the Thundersport riders and whatever, and this young lad called Luke Mossey turned up on it was either an R6 or a Triumph, I can't remember back then, and there was like your Thundersport Race of Aces or something, and it was the first time I'd seen a sort of BSB quality rider at a thing, and then from then obviously your career, I've sort of been in the same paddock and stuff and sort of seen, but I tell you what, just quickly, up until that point, I know you raced in Spain and all kinds of things. Just give a quick run through about like your initial start to racing and like how it sort of went the first few years.
Yeah, when my dad used to race in the 80s, he done the wild card in 89 at the 500 Grand Prix, and then sort of like a natural progression for, I think, any father, if they're into a sport, they naturally get their sons into that sport. So he bought me and my brother a PW50 when we was 4, and then bought us our first mini motors, I think, when we was 5. And it was only supposed to be a bit of fun, and it got quite serious very quickly, and then it just escalated then, and then here we are today, sort of thing. So
how quickly are we talking? Are we talking 10 minutes into the first meeting, your dad screaming at you for the sideline job?
It was definitely after the round 1 that it got very serious, and he was sort of shouting and screaming, because me and Jamie done quite well straight from the off, and yeah, that was it then. That was it. You know what it's like having your dad there, when they're
Did you feel you had a bit of a motocross dad?
Yeah, definitely.
Did your dad not even entertain the motocross side of it? You had the PW50, but never thought let's go schoolboy motocross.
He's never been a motocross fan,
right?
So he's always been a road racer, and
yeah.
How it happened was there's a go-kart track at the time called Caxton. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's near us in Royston, and he heard about this mini bike meeting, so we just went along to have a watch. And then a week later, we had 2 brand new Passinis at our house that Dad brought, and then that's how it happened. So, and then we just escalated very quickly, should we say.
At 5, and is this like a proper vivid moment? Like you come from the dog out and you're standing there with a football and a pair of boots going, Dad, I want to be a footy player. And he's like, nah.
And this is when the schooling started going downhill very quickly as well, unfortunately.
And
explains a lot.
So we've got like so much noise coming through.
I think we're parked up on the outside of the M6 this evening.
Might be an idea to close that door.
We're going to end up cooking, and I've ended up knacking this mic. Honestly, but we are professional at this. We're just winging it, lads.
Obviously, back then it was very much 2-stroke, and you carried on with the 2-strokes into some like quite serious racing, didn't you? So from the mini moto days, did you go sort of a metric kit route?
We started on Contis at the end of 03. I become British Conti champion in 2004. And then we went to Spain in 05 to do this Calypso 80cc metric kit thing. That sort of fell apart because I kept injuring myself that year. And then we went to Spanish Championship on a Honda 125, done okay for our first year in Spanish Championship. And then we went to Aprilia in 07, racing against guys like Marquez, Iannone, Redding, Folger, a lot of serious names that are in Grand Prix now, or have been in Grand Prix. So, and then in 08, we went to 250. We've done a whole season of 250 testing on an Aprilia, and we was going to go and do the full season in 09 because it was the last year of the 250 era sort of thing. And then that fell through, and then that's when we come back to UK, done stock 600 in 09, finished second in that championship, and then went to Supersport in 2010 till 2014, and Superbike in 2015.
So it would have been that 2010, that's why I didn't, you just seemed to appear at this Thundersport meeting, and I'd never even heard of your name, and you just absolutely blitzed all the thousands on this 600. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember, because Gary Johnson was there as well on the R1, and I nearly beat him on the last race, but he just picked me, obviously, because he's on a Superbike. I think he was on a Superbike.
What was on the old Supersport days?
No, I was on JT's Triumph, John
okay.
Trigger's Triumph. And then that was Westy's bike from the year before in Supersport, and then we got that bike for 2010. And Gary, I can't remember what team Gary Johnson was riding for, but I remember it being on a blue R1. But yeah, that was a good weekend. That was actually. No, it weren't AIM. I can't remember what it was now.
You've got me thinking.
No, I think it was East Coast Racing.
They had R1s, did they?
I think it was East Coast Racing. I'm sure it was.
They had blue livery, definitely, 100%.
I'm sure it was East Coast Racing.
Oh, you see, we're picking it. But anyway, you nearly had him on a Triumph.
Nearly had him on a 675 compared to an R1, so it weren't a bad day.
And we don't actually get to speak to that many people that used to race two-stroke 250s. And am I right? Did you do a few wild cards at Grand Prix on that?
Yeah, we done the British Grand Prix in 09 on the 250 when I was competing in stock 600, but at the same time, that was our Supersport, who we'd done all this two-stroke stuff with, and he sort of said, look, let's get the 250 back out for the last time. I think he still got it actually in his garage, but yeah, that was a good experience, racing with Simoncelli and people like that, some proper big names. So something to tell the grandkids when I'm older.
I was about to say, what's the biggest name? What's the biggest scalp you've got? Who have you sat up? Who's the most famous person you've sat up?
Well, it's funny because obviously I was teammates with Hector Barbara last year, but he actually sat me up massively at that 250 Grand Prix in 09 and gave me the finger and all sorts. And I told him last year
hold on. He sat you up and then gave you the bird.
But
what a classy guy.
Exactly. And then I told him about this last year when we were teammates, and he obviously couldn't remember, but I bloody still remember to this day. So I'm sort of taking that to my grave a little bit.
You're not tempted to give it back to him, like?
I did last year.
Good lad.
I gave it back to him last year, so that was all right. I made up for it.
And,
so what made you employ this then?
To be honest, my first memory of you was European Stock 600.
Oh yeah, I forgot. With the wild card when we beat Marino.
When you beat Marino at Silverstone, yeah.
I forget about all these things.
I was in the old Supersport R6.
You've had some right sort of one-off rounds and stuff. Some right experience.
Just been in the nearly man all my life, haven't I?
And I tell you what, we'll catch up to where you were when you first joined the British Paddock in a bit. But we'll just go. Obviously, Dave, I know you've been in the paddock for years and all kinds of different teams and classes and all sorts. And from your Facebook, I know you're into a bit of car. There's a car side, maybe bumper racing or something. So go on, just give us a quick run through of how you got into the paddock and your first
stupidity, really, but
aren't we all victims of that? Yeah.
I started car racing, kart racing back in the day, and then did car racing, and then car racing got quite expensive. And one of my mates, I was running a Yamaha shop at the time. One of my mates, Chris, said to me, "So, have you ever had to go on a bike on the circuit?" And I was like, "No." So we went. I remember going on. It was February. It was February the 14th. My missus was really happy with me. We went to Silverstone and went round and did my first ever track down on R6. And I actually quite liked it. It was quite quick, and I went, "Oh, that's cool." And he was like, "Cool, let's go racing then." So we did. We went did the KRC Endurance Championship. Did that for 3 years. Actually, really enjoyed it until 2006. Broke my back, got hit from behind from Mark Halverson Smith, and then I started helping Jamie Hamilton. I don't know if you remember doing Jamie. Started helping him in 07, 08 when he first came over. And he's like 15, and then it sort of gradually got worse from there. So.
Gradually got worse.
So 09 we decided that I wasn't going to do any more car stuff, and we were going to start our own bike team, and we did, and we got a title sponsor. We had Dave Johnson, Davo, riding for us in a superbike, and Nicky Coates in stock 600. So we bought some bits.
And that was in the same year.
That was in 2010, so that was the first year.
Superbike and so
Yeah, so that was our first year. So we did Evo Superbike, and we had a first win in the first year. Nicky won at Silverstone, so it was quite cool. And then 11 we went Suzuki and built some for AG Suzuki. Built the bikes for them for the year. Andy Reid and Josh Wainwright.
I remember that. Yeah.
They were right. They were on a bad bike, and then we did a little bit with Suzuki for a couple of years, and then it wasn't really what we wanted to do. And then we sort of did a bit of a mismatch. We brought Andy Irwin into the paddock in when was that? 2013, I think. Mm-hmm. Here he started here with us and on a Yamaha, and then we had like Phil Atkinson doing the Triple Challenge. And we had a bit of a mess around, and then 13 probably was when it all changed because basically, cut a very long story short. Nick Morgan phoned me and just said that the team that he'd lent a load of stuff to was going to fold, and could I go and nick it all back? So I went and got it all back for him. And when we did it, we got Harry Mainwaring with it.
As in like an unofficial bailiff type of thing.
No, it was.
I wouldn't want to slap off his son if you knocked me door and said, "I want me swinging arms back."
It was just, can you go and make sure my stuff's all right? So I just went and got it. When I did that, we got asked by Stuart and by Nick if we could continue with Howie and just help him out. So we did that weekend. Our first weekend, we sort of took two very bad superbikes, built one good one out of it, and he finished 8th that weekend, which was amazing at Alton. Mm-hmm. We did the finish of the year in 13 with him, and then we got a good relationship with Kawasaki going. So then we signed Danny Buchan and Ben Godfrey, John Kirkham for 14. And didn't have a bad year in 14. Obviously won the stock championship with Danny. We had some good results with Ben, and then we got to the end of 14, couldn't really get a deal done with Kawasaki to continue it, and we got an offer from MV. So MV gave us an offer of full factory support.
I'm sure that year that you've just mentioned, I'm sure, did Gary Mason not ride for you?
Yeah, Gaz rode the end of the year. Yeah,
he had a cracking ride at Cadwell, didn't he, in the wet one?
Yeah, finished 4th. Yeah, gutted. And then we started on the front row at Silverstone as well. So started 3rd, but the engine was dead. It was done its mileage. But yeah, it was a good year. Gaz, you're a good mate of mine, and we've sort of kept in touch. But it was sort of a year that I didn't want to. For me, if we'd have gone 14 and then carried on with Kawasaki, I think we could have done a lot more. I think in hindsight, the move to MV was good. We learned a lot more technically. So you learn how to. Because they tell you get lots of support from the factory, you don't. What you get is, don't do that. You would get some bits in a bit of while.
Because it's not exactly the you wouldn't necessarily pick that bike out of all the manufacturers in the beer. Like, not many people run them.
No, Supersport is definitely a mega bike. I think if they do the new generation Supersport and the 800 MV is available, I actually genuinely think that would be a bit of a bike to beat.
Because you had Hickman and Hutchie have a go at the TT on them bikes as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
What from their feedback?
They were just what was it? They should have won on the note alone. Just going down Braille. It was just like
from their feedback. What was it lacking?
The trophy.
what was it lacking compared to say the other manufacturers?
Well, Hickey rode for Jack Valentine.
That was it. Yeah.
But we spoke to Pete about it. To be honest, nothing. It just needed they had a very early bike. They had a 13 bike, so it had there was a lot of stuff like on our later bike, the 17 bike that Jack rode. I think if we had took that to the CT, I don't think anything had touched it.
Really?
I genuinely believe we could build an MV today that would annihilate anything at the TT.
The wicked in World Supersport, but they're just it's just never. And I mean, for example, when you had Jake Dixon on it here, he had been on the Triumph and various other things, and he could never replicate the results.
No, but we didn't quite have the bike back then. That was the thing. So it was actually not until we came here in 17 that we actually got the engine right. And that it took us 3 years to get it right. But then when we got that engine right for Jack in 17, we had 14 podiums, 5 wins, kept Kawasaki off the podium until we got to second Alton. It was only Yamaha and an MV that was winning from round 1 to second Alton. So we'd had a really good year with it, but it needed a huge amount of investment ready to go for the next year. And we couldn't do it, and we weren't quite getting the support and the speed that we needed it. because the factory itself was going through a massive transition. It was being taken over by Russians, and the Russian company own it now. So it's not owned by Castiglione. So there's a lot that was going on, and we probably were in the wrong time to do it. But actually, I genuinely believe that if I was given the budget to go and build an MV, and this is with my Kawasaki hat on, I think it could be, for aero, it is the best bike.
Are they still in World Supersport now?
Yeah,
Who's running it?
Luti. So it's not a factory team anymore. So the guys that are running it, Paolo and whatever, then they're assisted by the factory. But
Just getting nose down the food. Don't do that.
yeah, unfortunately the Russians don't get racing like the Italians do. So the Russians look at it as it's a drain of their resources, and the Italians look at racing as it's the be-all and end-all of life. So when you've got a bunch of it's been owned by Italians previously that had Cagiva as well. You know, when they come in and they go racing, they put their heart and soul into it. And that's what I love about them.
Yeah.
And that's what kept us there so long, I think. But on the other hand, when it's hard to get the right bits and you get them on time, and you know, it just never really worked out. So obviously we decided at the end of last year that after doing the deal with Pete, we were going to go back to Kawasaki, and you know, we had a good meeting with Ross last year about doing what we wanted to do, and here we are, and you know, flying the green flag again like we did in 14, and hopefully we'll get similar results to we did back then.
Because that's because you're running the 636 now. Now it's interesting you were saying you could build an MV that could whop, you know, like at the TT. That's what you say. If you had the correct budget and everything like that.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, they don't allow the 636. That's what you're running with Jack, isn't it? The 636. Fortunately, they don't allow that bike in at the TT.
Not yet.
Not do you know something we don't?
Well,
share, please share.
There's a question being asked at the minute. The 636 looks like it's going to be available for World Supersport for next year.
Fantastic news.
You know, we would expect that to be the transition from the 600, which is obsolete.
Well, that's it, because they're not making them anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
That's they don't even, the Yamaha have stopped making them.
Yeah.
But you can get them as a race package. Is that
You get them
correct?
as a race bike, yeah.
But you can't buy them as a road going thing.
Yeah.
So, but have you? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going off on one here. But have you heard they brought out a new Honda?
Yes.
There you are.
I saw one at Alton Park.
What do you make of it?
It looks very similar like the old one, but it's just got a set of wings on it.
Who doesn't like wings? Face it. Do you like wings?
Chicken
No,
wings.
no. What
to be honest, if you look at the new ZX10, the wings actually work, and they're not really on the body. You don't see them because the aero is built in. I actually think that's quite cool compared to having sticking two sideboards on the side of it.
No, you see, I'm far too uneducated to be a combat pilot, and that's as close as I'm going to get to flying a jet, aren't I? Can you feel it? I've asked him millions of times, and he gets pissed off the more I ask him. Can you feel the difference between the inlets on a Kawasaki?
Yeah.
Not really winglets; they're like inlets, aren't they? So,
If I'm honest, I can't.
right?
Actually can't feel the massive difference. I'm sure if I could back to back an old bike and with that one.
What about from last week? So obviously the bike you rode at World Superbike last week was the old bodywork,
Right?
Yes.
and then you've used.
But then it had full Minarelli traction, and I was just doing that, and the traction was just working.
Well,
It went
Minarelli's,
wheelie with the traction, so it was hard to.
So let's say down the straight, you go full throttle, no back brake, nothing. And
Nothing.
it just keeps.
yeah.
Just hovers going down the straight.
So the sort of the data engineer or the guy setting the electronics up has a big impact.
Yeah.
On how good the bike is.
Yeah,
type of thing.
definitely.
And I guess because we talk about this all the time on the podcast as well, like the BSB wheels, I presume you're a big fan of having no electronics, and then it's much more even.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's better in the right wrist. I think the traction can get really expensive and really complicated for BSB spec, and I don't think it's really necessary. I mean, if you took one like a Halloran or somewhere there, I think they could be around in the top 10 on their BSB bike anyway. So
Really?
yeah, I
Really?
think so. Yeah.
Jesus.
So
Would you want to ride that bike full whiskey? You know, the one you were on? Do you reckon you could go quicker? Sorry, turn off all the Morelli and all that crap. Do you reckon you would have gone quicker on it?
not on that bike, I think.
No.
It's tricky because obviously I've not ridden a super bike since October.
Right.
So I've been on stock, riding stock all winter,
Yeah.
getting into stock mode, and I got chucked straight in the deep end at World Superbike that I've not ridden before, and I've not ridden a superbike since October. So it was hard trying to get. It took me most of the weekend to get back into superbike mode, like up to speed with the tyres, suspension, everything else. So it was a tough weekend really, but.
Now, with your stock bike, now we're having the less ponies and you have got a little bit of electronics package. Are you more tempted to run less electronic aids with less power.
Yeah,
You say?
I'm trying to use as less as I can because my ultimate goal is to get back into BSB next year. So I'm not trying to get used to traction completely. So if I do go back to BSB, I'm not relying on traction like you do on a stocker. Like some people use a lot of traction, I think, and I don't really want to go down that route. I don't think you need to anyway because it hasn't got 240 horsepower. It's only got around 200, so you don't really need to use the traction, I don't think, that much.
Yeah, because it's more of a road-going package, isn't it? So you can naturally hear it absolutely kicking its tits. And like when you get anti-wheelie, it's like... And see the bike physically drag back, aren't you? But normally with me riding one. So.
Are you enjoying riding the stocker and like sort of have it?
Yeah, mate, I'm absolutely loving it. I know we're only at round 2, but I really am enjoying myself at the moment. I'm really enjoying my riding. Obviously I do want to get back to BSB next year. That is my ultimate goal. But, we've still got a long year with the stocker, and hopefully we can win some races and hopefully challenge for the title this year, and I think we can. The bike's really good. This new Kawasaki, I think, is a really good package, and like I said, I'm just really enjoying it, mate. It's like, I don't see it as a backward step. I see it as a bit of a sideward step this year. I think stock's, it's one of the toughest that I've seen this year with the riders in it. So
it's like this morning there was like a 10th separate.
2 temps between 10 riders or more like around here, and you're struggling to find them like little bits, aren't you? But
like in the FP2 today, I came in. I was 6th, and I was just over half, or like less than 1/10 off 0.068 it was. And you're like,
that. But where can I find that?
That's the thing. But yeah, I mean, it is a great class, and it's like the racing's so tight, and I think as well the bikes are probably a bit more fun to ride because just with it being a bit softer and a bit more forgiving than a super bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously everyone's goal is to get to the highest class possible. Now I just want to quickly go back because I know you had a really long career in British Supersport, and especially with the Smiths Triumph team. You were with them for a long time and had some good teammates. We've actually had quite a lot of your teammates on. Billy McConnell was talking about I think you knocked him off or something. He was talking about that, and you had some great teams like Glenn Richards, and through a kind of golden era of Supersport as well. Some of the years you were in it. Do you want to just give us a quick run through of your sort of favourite moments over the years?
The first year in 2010 was, I think, the toughest year because it had like Sam and Alex Lowe's, Ian Hutchinson, Glenn on the Padgett's Honda, Billy and Westy on the Camo Yamahas, the raceway bikes. Sam Warren on the seat and tuning Yamaha. I mean, there was a lot of good. That was a really hard depth of field that year, but we had some good results. I think we finished 6th a few times, and finding our feet. I was only 16 when we come to Supersport in 2010, so I was very young. Riding with all them experienced guys that have been in the class for a good number of years, especially like people like Glenn and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was a tough year. And then we went to Smiths for 2 years. And then obviously to Tech Care Profile with Stapleford in 13 and 14. So yeah, we've had some good years in Supersport. It's definitely one of the most enjoyable bikes I've ever ridden, the 675.
And the thing with Billy, when did you knock him off or something, or is that what's it?
Yeah, I think his story's a little bit different to mine, but
for our audio listeners, that was the biggest eye roll I think I've ever witnessed. So you can, Chrissy, if you do the editing on that noise, you'll hear his skull crunching. That's how hard they go.
It's because he mentions it every time I see him. That's why.
I was going to say he's had his chance to give his account of it. So.
And I've sort of gave him a little mark on his finger. So, but yeah, we was battling for the podium at Brands, and we was literally even though we was teammates, I mean, we was bashing fair into the whole race, and then it come to the last lap, and I was on the inside. I already showed him my front wheel after Hawthorne's, the right hander, before you go down the hill. So I was in front of him, and he let the brake off to try and go around the outside of me. And then I let the brake off, and then we just both run wide. Then he hit the grass and lost the front, and he lost the nail on his finger. And then
I was talking about it.
That's all he goes on about. You ask him, ask him about. He calls it the Mossey finger. You ask him when you see him. Honestly, ask him when you see him.
Now, when you first moved up to superbikes,
are you regretting employing him now?
No, I can say our garage is such banter. One of them you can't understand, and then you got him on the other side.
Good.
A lot of people, when they step up from, say, Superstock or Superbikes, for some people click with it, for some people they don't, and they end up sort of fluctuating in between. When you first stepped up to British Superbikes, it looked like it was just a match made in heaven, really. That was with Bournemouth Kawasaki, wasn't it? And instantly really competitive. And there was a time where I remember, say, Brands Hatch, you did the double, leading the championship, beating Leon Haslam. That must have been such a great feeling after stepping up. Yeah,
the first year, obviously, Pete was already a good established superbike team. He had Dan Linford the year before, and he finished third in the championship. or 4th, I think it was. So we sort of had that Dan's bike from the year before, and just sort of never really changed the settings. Just got on his bike and to learn the bike, and had like good guys like Johnny Gill and Ray Stringer, who are very experienced in the superbike class. And then we went to Spain, and it weren't all easy, I wouldn't say, because we went to Spain testing, and I think we was fastest all week in testing. We were shaking everyone there, and I was a bit gobsmacked, like I can't believe we're actually fastest. And then we come back to round 1, and I finished 20th, and my head sort of fell off, and it's definitely harder than what I thought it was. But we kept chipping away, and then I think by round 3 we started creeping into the top 10, and then we went to Thruxton, I think it was round 5, and then I got on the podium, and then since then it clicked, and then we was fighting for the podium every weekend that year. Same as 16, another learning year, shall we say. Loads of podiums, load of front row starts, had a few pole positions, which was good. And then 17, I thought it was time to shine, and was leading the championship by 50 points up to Thruxton until I had that massive crash on the start and finish. And I think, I like to think that I could have really challenged for the title that year, but I broke my back in 4 places, and I knew it was in a bit of a sticky situation after that.
Crash at Thruxton then? What actually happened then? What?
I was on. If you've heard of the gain loss on the lights when they're green and red. Anyway, I was like a second up from my previous fastest lap on the Friday on Saturday morning, and I thought, right, if I can just get to the line, I'm definitely going to be P1 here by quite a good margin. Anyway, what Thruxton's like. He started the rear was drifting on the start and finish, and I was drifting closer to the grass, and I was literally here to that doorway to the start and finish. Like the back wheel just clipped the grass, and I went so high I could see my house. But I remember floating through the air. And that was the biggest crash I've ever had. It was horrendous. I mean, I knew I'd done something to my back because my legs were numb, my feet were numb. And I thought, I better not get up for a little while. But and then I was in hospital for a week. Luckily, I didn't have to operate. But it took me a long time, like physically and mentally, to get over that, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. I can remember this on social media because you're a family man, aren't you? Mm. How many?
I've got two little girls.
2 little girls. I remember that social media post. Yeah, you were in hospital with your girls and stuff like that. I was like, Jesus, wept out. And that's what happened.
Yeah, that hurt, that did. You want to do that every weekend, I can assure you.
No. Did you get pole then? Because the bike would have, if it was that close, the bike,
I got
the transponder would have...
Even though if they've got a footage of me flying through the air, the start and finish you see, I'm flying through the air, and I still went second with that lap time. So it would have been a pretty special lap if I could have actually made it.
Match it. I'm Paul in your wheelchair.
Exactly.
The back's done in, but I'm here. Let's do this.
Exactly.
Where's me watch? Stuart, where's me watch?
Do you know, like sort of if buts and maybes type of thing, but that's like if you're just looking at the statistics of your career type of thing, it does sort of massively look like up, and that was such a obviously there's nothing you can do to change it, and it's a horrendous injury, and to be honest, you've done well to even get back back to racing, but you must sometimes think like if only. Yeah.
It's so frustrating because I think that could have, if we didn't have that crash, who knows where my career could have gone. I'd like to think the world stage, but I've had a good life in racing. I'm only 28 now. I like to think I've got another good 10 years in me. Obviously at the moment we're in Superstock and I want to be champion, but I still want to be BSB champion one day. So, I've still got a bit of time. I still feel like I've got a lot to give in racing, especially in the British paddock. So, just got to wait and see what happens now.
Mm-hmm. Good lad.
And so once what was the recovery time like? A few months or something?
It should have been 4 months, but I was racing 4 weeks after, and I shouldn't have been. It was the only reason I did was because we. I still could have made the showdown, and in race 1 I actually finished 5th at Silverstone. This is 4 weeks after I broke my back, and then in race 2 I just got a bit paranoid. My back didn't feel right, and we just missed out to Jake Dixon, I think by 2 points at the end of the weekend. So, but even if I did get in, we wouldn't have done anything because I still went right until way past like near Christmas time. So we wouldn't have done anything if we got in anyway. It was just nice to be in the top 6 sort of thing. But yeah.
And then did you do another year with Bournemouth?
Another year at Bournemouth, and it was a tricky year because they changed the bike a lot to suit Leon. And
was this pre-red top as well? So we had the red top Kawasaki with the titanium internals. Was this would have been before
that year? In 18?
18 was the last year of blacktop, 18.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? So
red top came 19, 20.
That was it, yeah, because everyone was whinging about that.
It was hard at 18 because we still had front rows. We led a lot of races, but it just never really clicked that year. And then obviously me and Pete parted ways, and then I moved to OMG on the Suzuki. And then the BMW, but not really OMG's fault at the time. I don't think the Suzuki in 19 and the BMW last year were the bikes to be on. It was a tricky couple of years, but yeah, we just got to wait and see now. Like I said, I'm glad I'm in stock. I'm enjoying it. You know, I still want to get back to BSB and be BSB champion one day. So just got to wait and see what the future holds now.
Would you go to World Supersport?
No. I'm not interested in 600s anymore.
You are.
It was way too big.
I've been there and done that. I've done Supersport for so long, and then we've done a few wild cards in that as well. I've rode like 600s a lot, and you know, Dave's right. I'm too big as well. You know,
How big? How tall are you?
6 foot. But I'm just so focused on 1,000 now. I prefer I used to love riding 600. Don't get me wrong, but now I've been on 1,000. I wouldn't want to be going back. Should we say? Yeah.
Yes.
It would feel flat now.
Well, I rode Andy Reid's one in 16, and I done just to try it before we went to Spain because it was a brand new bike, and I done 2 laps. I was like, I don't want to ride this because it's gutless. It's not to the normal person, but after riding a super bike for a long time and then getting on 600, it's a bit of a culture shock, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You know what it's like as well. So
you have to remember the guys that are now doing World Supersport are almost a lot of Moto2 guys.
Yeah.
So they're all 5'5", 5'6", 65 kilos, and that's why Supersport is where it is at the minute. If you look at World Supersport, almost dropped off a cliff, didn't it?
Yeah.
When Keenan left and what have you, it was pretty boring to watch. I mean, and now they've brought these guys in. I mean, Bardal had been the testament of it. Bringing somebody from Moto2 that's been pretty fast in Moto2, they'll come and kick ass here. And that's what they've done for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, and they've done very well with it. So I think if you took somebody that's been on 1,000 now for 8 years, I think it'd be a tough old job.
Speaking of small guys on the 600s, I take it when you were racing, were you more of 1,000 man?
Believe it or not, I was a lot smaller. I started racing on 1,000, yeah. And then in 06, Yamaha asked us to build them an R6 race bike, the new shape one.
Yeah.
And we built our first one, went to the Ali Pali show with it and everything. And I loved that bike, it was brilliant until and that was the one I had a crash on, and then that was into that really. And then, so I started the bike racing team, and now I still do a bit of car racing, do GT class at Castle Combe and a few places.
Dave's the only man in the paddock that calls Philcro Titch.
That would be a hell of a boxing match. Looking at these charity box. I'm genuinely trying to set that up. You know, I think a charity boxing match, but it would be hellish, wouldn't it? Who wouldn't pay to go see that?
No, speaking
that
of,
would be good. Jesus, that would be it'd be messy, wouldn't it?
I know I mentioned the roads a little bit earlier, and I know you've sort of dipped in and out of road racing for a long time now, but TTs and various other things. Yeah, I think you were the first person to take a Chinese bike to the TT.
Yeah, we did the WK650 in 13.
And
Qingdao.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you jumped in on that because I could have got that sore off there.
The best sponsor ever.
I bet.
The sort of the Chinese in terms of that class, it seems to be like a bit of a growing thing at the moment. And I know Freddie, Gary's missus, she's running them at
WK, yeah.
No limits, isn't it? Was it not WK that used?
CF Moto. So it's the same thing. So CF Moto is the parent company in China. WK were the importer here. We built the first one that Gary rode. So Gary actually did the first ever laps on a Chinese bike at the TT.
Yeah.
We'd signed up Dave Johnson to do it. And Dave was doing stock 1,000 at World Supers at Donington on the Saturday night, and we wanted to get the bike round. So Gaz went, I'll jump on it, I don't care. So we were like, I wonder how he'll do, you know, maybe a 75, 80 mile an hour lap when he came past at like 103 or something like that.
Straight off the bat. And
we were just like, holy shit.
No messing.
And then we tried to get, we had another bike there in park, well, we had 2 more bikes in spares, and then we built the second bike to get Gaz out on it to try and get him to race it, and the TT wouldn't let us. But they're a bit of an arsehole. And then Dave did all right with it. But it blew up. We had the biggest problem we had with that bike was engine. Just the engine components weren't good enough. It was a copy of an ER6.
The crankcases weren't identical, weren't they?
Everything fitted. We actually did get an ER6 crank, pistons, everything in it.
Really?
Yeah. It was an absolute copy. So you could build one if you could have put Kawasaki bits in it and it had been safe and it would have done the job.
TT's like the ultimate test, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
You are on the throttle for so long.
But we went back the following year with Dan Cooper with it, And Dan did all right on it. We moved over to a better aero package on it, which is one of the first things that we didn't get right on the first build. But the chassis was good. We built it with Harris. Did a lot of work with Lester Harris and the boys there to get the frame right, and we obviously can't trust Chinese welding, so we cleaned it all down, re-welded everything and made a proper subframe for it, and we had a full quick release rear wheel in it, so we were the only lightweight that could actually change the wheel if we wanted. So we could have run like a really super soft tyre, and then we could have changed it at the fuel point. Yeah, it was a good little bike. We did a couple of years with it. It was one of the reasons we got Qingdao as a sponsor.
Mm-hmm. I remember the end of season party that you had a massive thing.
We had a
I
few,
don't
didn't
drink,
we?
but it's just full of Qingdao and beer. Like.
Yeah, we did 2,500 cans of beer in 14. Yeah, that was a mess.
Whose job was it to tally that up?
We just got them delivered on pallets.
And just no one's allowed to leave till the pallets are clear. Simple as that.
There
There
were
we go.
literally 2 pallets turned up, full with beer, and that was it. And they do vodka and all sorts we had as well.
I just thought you've had. I'm just thinking there of different sponsors. Yeah, can you remember the sponsor you had that you weren't allowed to run?
That was brilliant. That was you.
Oh, yeah,
You are
okay.
outstanding. I'm going to say.
What's the story about that?
Right, okay,
You were searching.
No, so
Well, I've got my idea for a sponsor.
Your subscription is up, sir.
the bank's empty. I need to get them as a sponsor. No, so basically the Pornhub thing came along
Brilliant.
because they did a tweet saying they're looking at getting into doing different forms of advertising and marketing. So I thought, that's a good idea. So I actually know the guy in Spain who is their PR guy, a friend of mine called Alex. And so I contacted Alex and said, like, what's the deal? So he said, yep, you need to get into me. We're doing it with our company in Spain. I said, cool. I said, so what's the gig? How does it work? He went, we'll give you, and it was a big chunk of money. If you can get it on your bike at a BSB event, this particular amount of money you will get straight away, even if it's only for one day, as in one race meeting, and it's on TV, you're on. And I went, cool. So I contacted Stuart and said, and it's actually still in my WhatsApp messages with Stuart. It's like, dude, we've got this sponsor, we've got this opportunity to do, this with Pornhub. And he went, yeah, I've seen they're doing something. I've got no issues with it. Crack on.
Right.
So, cool. So we did it, and we needed some photographs, and we tried to be really clever. If you look at the bike, how we hid it, even as the bike had a bit of white, we put the first part of their name in white with a black outline, so it was quite well hidden. But the hub bit was in the orange.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So, and that was the bit that everybody remembers. If you think of the website, which I'm sure you've all been on,
I'm from Hexham, we don't have internet. You know what I mean? So this is all new to me.
Yeah, sure it is. Off to McDonald's car park. And free Wi-Fi.
Jesus, wait.
So,
Big Mac, please.
what do you think all those little Vauxhall courses are there?
Oh my god!
So we did this thing. We took them down, and it was really bad in a way because we sticking them all up, and we took the pair of the bikes down into having the photographs taken at the test day, at the official press day with BSB, and we literally put them on because the test day was a washout.
I remember.
We put them on the bike and just walked them to the end of pit lane into the photo booth, and then walked them back into the van, and that was it. They were gone. Right. Somebody took a picture of it whilst it was in pit lane being walked down, and it got tweeted over 1 million times, retweeted by Valentino Rossi. It went absolutely viral. It was on Sport Bible. It was in Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy. It was like massive piece in there. It was all. I said to Stuart and I couldn't believe it. It was just like, holy shit. And then we said to Stuart, everything all right. He's like, man, you need to be a bit cool with it. Just be sensible with it. Don't be stupid. So at the time we were still Qingdao Racing, but Pornhub were a secondary sponsor because we didn't want it as Pornhub Racing. It would have been a bit obvious.
It would have been better, yeah.
It probably would have, but it was a little bit too obvious. So
yeah, of course it was, yeah.
You have to play the sensible game. And then, unfortunately...
the sensible game with them as a sponsor.
But if you think about it, like Paul Bird had Minx Flicks, so that's a similar thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right, so it's not as if it hadn't been around that genre of, but not probably that high profile of company.
Right.
So then we went to the first test day, first BSB round, and Stuart came and saw me on the Thursday and said, "Need to have a quick chat, mate." I was like, "Okay, yeah, cool." He said, "We got a problem." I said, "All right, yeah, what's that?" He said, basically, Eurosport is a French-owned company, and what they do is they send the video back to France, and it's beamed out of France back into the UK to just that's how it works. And they'd actually sent a letter to Stuart's boss saying basically if that bike goes on the grid and gets seen on TV, we'll cut the feed, because the law in France is you can't promote sex or alcohol on TV.
Alcohol. So
yeah, they have a real funny.
Oh, then don't get drinks until like 12
certain,
or something.
There's certain things you can. I think beer you can, but you can't certain spirits and stuff.
Right.
But porn is definitely out.
Yeah. Also, it was actually the French that.
So yeah, so it was,
the party
Eurosport.
poopers.
So it was Eurosport that actually forced us to pull it.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm surprised. The thing is, like you said, Paul Bird was sponsored by Minx Flicks, and that never sort of it never crossed my mind. But when I first saw it, just with it, you know, like BSB aimed at like the kids are sort of, it's like a family thing, isn't it? Really, to come to the racing and stuff. But when you actually break it down and think about it, what is and what isn't allowed, and like it is a tricky one, really, and it's difficult for someone to manage like that, because, like, for example, if a young family came to the race, and for some people that would be a massive. I mean, like on Ofcom, if you just say something hard, like nothing on the news or whatever, they just get bombarded with things. So it is quite a controversial thing. But I guess, the sort of no publicity is bad, no publicity.
Bad publicity.
Yeah.
But we didn't get any bad press off it. That was the thing. So if you look at, even now, it is hilarious, and I still giggle about it now. And that was 2017 we did that.
It'll be that's timeless. I'm not being funny. That is timeless.
So if you put Pornhub into a Google image search, right, it actually comes up within the first 10 pictures, that bike.
Really?
Yeah. It's mental.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at my phone. Carry on.
Right. So it's crazy. That photo that somebody took.
How did you find that out? No,
I'm
I'm just kidding.
But it's weird. Like, obviously, then we released all the proper pictures of the bikes and everything, and obviously it just went absolutely mental.
But by the way, if anything happens to me horrible tomorrow, I'm only typing this in for media research, right? So if anyone picks up my phone, that's why it's in.
Speaking of sponsorship, do you want to get? I know Tech Care have been with you for years, been a massive sponsor of yours. Do you want to give them like a little bit of the story about how you come together, and like a bit of a shout out?
Yeah, I mean,
They're watching porno.
they probably have. It's two guys called Chris and John Evans. They're massive bike fans, especially classic bikes. My dad restores classic bikes, so that's how he met Tech Care. They're from what town they're from?
Sorry,
what
mate.
town Tech Care from?
I had no idea.
Well, anyway, it's near Bournemouth. I can't remember what the town's called now. Anyway, Dad's really good.
Wimborne. Is it Wimborne? It's down that way, isn't it?
I've been there so many times, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, Dad restores a lot of bikes for them. It just so happened, Dad said, "Do you want to sponsor?" This is well before Superbike. This is like early Supersport days, and just said, "Do you want to sponsor my laddie races?" And then there's just been sort of a lifetime sponsor, and they're still here today. So I'm very grateful for what John and Chris have done, because I wouldn't be here now without them. So very grateful for them.
Oh, fantastic! And these two, are you looking at that?
I'm literally looking at Pornhub here. They are, so
I'm trying to find out
who was the rider.
I tell you what.
So it's Joe Francis and Harry Truelove.
Right.
Because
that
was the thing.
That's Joe Francis then.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's the Pornhub one. Yeah.
Right there.
So obviously Truelove.
Where's my cameras?
Right. We had his board was done as Truelove, as in the Pornhub writing, because they loved it.
Is that is the photo getting pushed through the paddock?
Mental. That's the picture that went mental.
You know, your sister's in charge of editing. It's going to be a bit weird sending this to your sister.
Have you had any other like sort of obscure sponsors like that?
Tempest was a weird one.
What was Tempest?
So Tempest is
Mattress.
Tempest is a GQ magazine for billionaires. And it's a really weird company. It's still out there today. So if you're a rich dude, like crazy rich, you get this magazine. It's like a GQ magazine for what you want to spend your money on. So they'll have like a Richard Mille watching their £1 million being reviewed. And like a 56-foot Sunseeker being reviewed and all this sort of stuff, and where to go on holiday in your 250 GT California and all that sort of stuff. It's a really weird magazine, but the guy that ran it at the time wasn't really into bikes. It was like a mate of mine that knew him through the publishing side, and they dragged him along, took him to Brands, stuck him on the inside of sort of clearways onto Clark, and sat him literally almost where the marshal's point is and let him stand there watching, and he was just absolutely besotted by it. And he saved us in 17 when everything got nicked out of the truck, and that was quite a strange sponsor. He was quite a strange guy.
What happened with did you just get burgled?
Yeah, we used to keep our truck in a police compound, and don't laugh. And they actually, a load of pikeys basically got into the police compound and nicked all the diesel out of all the police vehicles and all the recovery vehicles. And whilst they're in there, we watched it on video. They look at it, they look in the truck, and then think, oh, something in there. So they did the window in it, got into it, did the door from the inside, and then engines, wheels, suspension, toolboxes, everything just gone out of it. But we were only insured at the time for when it was out on the road. Why would you need to insure it in a police compound? So we lost everything. And that's how sort of the 17 year was quite odd. And it was actually a good thing in a bad way, because that's forced us then to buy engines from not Italy, because we were getting factory engines at the time. We actually had made, they were done by a guy called Steve Meller, that was part of the V&M. So V&M was Valentine and Meller, and back in the day, the yellow and red Yamahas. Steve Meller was an unbelievable engine tuner. And he built us a couple of engines, and they were the missiles that Jack rode in 17. Unfortunately he passed away now, but he was a 1 in a million type of guy to build an engine. He was unbelievable.
Bloody hell.
I know you mentioned JT earlier, and obviously JT sadly passed away. It was quite a few years ago now, wasn't it? And John Trigger, for those that aren't aware, he was like the top engine builder for Triumph Racing, wasn't he?
He was a very good Triumph engine builder. He done all our engines through my whole Supersport career. He started with Glenn and Youngie, Paul Young, and then worked with Westy, then me, Billy, Glenn from 11 to 12, and then still Billy and Glenn when they was at Smiths in 13 and 14, and our engines with Profile Tech Care. So it was a massive shame what happened to him. A bit of a freak accident, but he was a very good bloke. He was on and off the track.
Just a good engineer, wasn't he?
Very good.
Really clever.
Very, very good.
Really clever.
Here's a question, and obviously you've dabbled in roads and you've been up, you know what I mean? What about yourself? This is a strong no from here.
Can I just tell you before we came on the podcast, you're outside, I said, at some point during this podcast,
Dom's going to ask.
Dom will say, what about the roads to you?
Look, mate, I haven't got a big role on this thing, but that's my angle.
So I went there in my first year in 15 in Superbikes. James Hillier was my teammate doing the roads. So I went there to watch for the week, and I remember standing at the Conker Tree. I've never really watched it. So I stood at the Conker Tree for the first Superbike race, and McGuinness come through first, and I just sort of instantly said, absolutely not for me. And then, then the year after that, I had Emmy, and then, I've never even thought about it since then. I've just got, I admire everyone that does it completely, but for me, I get lost around Brands Hatch, so I'm never going to never be able to do that. So.
What I find interesting is, and sometimes I would consider myself a purist, or racing for me is at the TT. That is my opinion of racing. Now, what frustrates me, we get a lot of riders who almost follow the same path, and that path sadly goes down. My short circuit career wasn't working, so I went to the roads.
Yeah, for money.
Not even the money, the chance of getting up. Yeah, no, it is. There is a drive for the money to keep themselves in the game.
There's good prize money in it. That's what you have to remember.
10 years, you're saying, in your opinion, 10 years left. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
Next year, you're hung up dry, for touch wood, for the love of God. Nothing's on the offer, nothing's on the table. Absolutely sweet FA. Right, son, you've got a British Superbike ride if you do this.
I don't think that. I've never even heard of it.
No.
That's a
stretch.
That's a sore subject.
No, it is a sore subject. But you see, the thing is, that has happened for previous riders, and they've gone on to do absolutely amazing things. I'm not saying that is the right thing to do, but a dream is a hard thing to put down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's just
it's different when you've got kids. I've got 2 kids. I've got a lot of responsibilities at home. I think the short circuits is dangerous enough anyway.
Yeah.
TT, I think, is absurd now. The speed of the bikes, and And like I said, obviously, full credit to the guys that can do it and want to do it. But for me, it's not worth it, mate.
Yeah.
I want to. I think I'm going to live forever still at this time. So I don't. It's not for me.
No, good. No, you're sticking by your guns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why it's you've got to stick by.
I think it's the sort of thing that you've got to really want to do,
Aim
not
at
to
that,
be
yeah.
pushed in to do it, and then
Yes.
because mistakes can happen, and we know the consequences. So
Yes.
I think it's definitely something that you've got to really want to do, not to be pushed
Yeah.
or half-hearted doing.
Yeah.
So
Do you know you mentioned earlier about your brothers? Did you say Jamie?
Yeah.
Did Jamie carry on racing or?
no, he stopped racing in 2010, I think. He sort of had a couple of years from 08 to 10, just doing a few wild cards in 125s and stock 600s, and then he just said to me, Dad, one day I've had enough. I don't want to do it anymore. He actually done the first year in 07 in the Red Bull Rookies. He did.
Right.
Didn't have the best of years. He had a lot of mechanical failures, unfortunately, but he had.
It was no mug.
No, he was a good. Jamie was a good 125 racer, but he just got to the point where he wanted to do something else. He just didn't. He just literally just woke up one day and said, "I'm done with racing. I want to do something else."
What age was this then?
Probably about 15. Oh, when he done the Red Bull Rookies.
No. I mean, when he just went, what?
I think it was about 15. 14,
Really?
15. Yeah, he just said, "I don't want to do it anymore."
What's he doing now, your brother?
What isn't he doing? He's got his own recruitment company.
Time.
He's working for one of my personal sponsors, actually, called Amberstone. They're a security camera company.
Filming your truck getting broken.
He does car finances. He's got a lot of his fingers in a lot of pies, but
Oh, yeah.
he's happy, mate. He's got 2 kids. He's married a few years ago into a nice family, so he's got a good life as well. But yeah, it was a bit out of the blue for me and Dad, because he literally just woke up and said, I don't want to do it anymore, and that was that. Pulled the plug completely. So
To be fair, he manages you a bit now as well. Doesn't
yeah, and he
Also-
manages me now, doesn't he? He brings
That's
on a
good.
lot of sponsors, and Jamie is quite good. He can talk sort of a tortoise out of a shell, so
Does
he's quite good at that.
So does he come to the races still then?
He comes when he needs to. Obviously, here, Knockhill, he's not going to come to, because this is a 7-hour drive for us. Alton's 3.5 hours, so he'll be at Brand, Fruxton, the fairly close ones. Obviously, he still enjoys watching it and stuff. So
And speaking of brands, you sometimes have one of your mates is Kirk Norcross from Towie, and there's been a few Towie people at brands over the. You won't even know what Towie is, do you?
No.
The Only Way is Essex. It's like a TV show.
Oh, I've
Is-
heard of that shy eye.
Were you and Kirk just mates for years, type of thing?
no, I met him.
Why are you shaking your head?
I've met him
I'd
through a
rather
mate.
paint
Jack
dry.
Blake knew him. I can't remember. Yeah, it must have been about 13. We met him. We brought him to one of the races, and then we just sort of hit it off. So yeah, we've just been friends ever since. He's come to a few
That
BSBs.
explains a lot, to be fair.
Well, he's not far from me, is it? So
Well, pulled up socks and all that sort of stuff.
but I can pull it off, can't I? So.
Did you live in Essex?
It went quite quiet.
No, the thing is, people are hard to see because people think I'm from Essex. I'm not. I'm from Royston, which is Hertfordshire. So where I actually live, I'm
About
literally.
3 miles.
Was it?
It's not far from Essex, obviously. I'm literally on the border, but I'm actually from Hertfordshire. So
The end of his road's in Essex, just his road 7 doors up.
I'll tell you what, before we go, just a few quick fire questions. This is for both of you. We'll go Luke first. What's your single best racing memory?
probably doing my double at Brands Hatch in 17, my first BSB win, and I was happy with the first one. I was sort of ready to go and party then, and then come to race 2, we done it again, and I was like completely shocked. So yeah, I had a good night that night after.
Yeah. For you, Dave.
Championship with Danny in 14.
Chicken Down stock, and that's
Stock
6,000.
Yeah, just a mega year.
Oh, fantastic. Another quick question. You're going on, like, say, a stag do. You need to take, we'll go 3, keep it short. 3 people from the racing world. Which 3 people would you take?
Billy McConnell, probably Shaky, and Johnny Gill, which is my old crew chief, because he's good at a party. So
Fair enough.
Wilf, obviously. I'd have to take him because I go over there and get pissed with him. Corsa, he's a naughty night out.
I didn't think of him.
And probably Billy again. I've had a few naughty nights out with him, to be
Yeah.
fair. So yeah,
Were you not going to run a Ducati or something like last year or something?
yeah.
Before?
We when we did the deal with Gino, one of Gino's sponsors was buying it from Bricks, who are now the Patter sponsor as well.
Right.
And the deal never really sort of came off. It was unfortunately it was all held up by lots of bits and bobs. So that's why we ended up buying the Kawasaki from Bournemouth, and that's why the Kawasaki thing all came back, and that's why we're here again today. So
Fair enough.
things happen for the right thing, don't they?
And finally, who's top 3 for British Superbike Championship this year?
Halloran, Iden, and Taron, I'd say.
Yeah.
Right.
Agree with the first two, and I'd put Bridewell in there.
Bridewell, yeah. I tell you what, O'Halloran and Iden are just on one at the moment, aren't they? Like, we had O'Halloran on, was it last week or the week before?
At some point, when you think we had him on.
All the years he's been in BSB, just chipping away and getting injured, and ups and downs, and something's really clicked from this year, and he's never been on the podium here at Knockhill, and obviously we've raced one today. He was right up. Him and Christian just seem to be the two guys at the moment, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, Jason runs on confidence, definitely. Because when he's confident, he is almost unbeatable. Well, he was unbeatable when he got on.
Yeah.
Obviously secured his own place in the showdown already. Because if you win 3 races, the rule is you're in the showdown straight away.
Really?
Yeah, that was out last year, wasn't it? That came out. I don't know if it's been carried on to this
3
year.
in a row?
If you win 3 in
It
a
is
row,
this year.
yeah.
I think it is this year.
3
Shut up, man.
So he's already qualified for the showdown. So that he effectively now could actually drop out, and he could automatically go into the showdown. There could be 7 in the showdown.
Right.
So it is.
Also, someone just told us the other day that this year there's 8 in the showdown.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, so there could be 9 if Jason didn't make it.
Why don't they just extend it to the rest of the grid?
Well, it's a bit.
Oh yeah, no, they had a system like that,
Who's ever
didn't
going to
they?
win 3 in one weekend, especially on the new rules?
Mm.
I mean, to do it, that's special.
It's
You
been
know.
done
Yeah,
at round 1.
Yeah, but look how he's riding.
Oh god, there's no denying.
Unbelievable. So he rides a massive confidence. I think whilst they've got him in that bubble, I think he will be hard to beat. Christian's had a good win here today, and I think he's going to. I think a lot of them PBM eggs are starting to move. You look at Josh. Well, Josh hasn't had a good start to the season. He never does he? Let's be fair.
No, he did that last season. You know what I
it's
mean?
round
Just
3
spun it.
when he starts to get his head in. But it'd be interesting how much, PBM will pick a favourite. I think. I think that's how it works. I think they do end up having one rider they put a lot more effort into. That's just an outsider looking in. And I think that Bridewell County was leading the championship until Alton last year, and he could have, he was close to winning the championship the year before, and they've got a lot more knowledge now with the bike and what have you. They've done a lot of their own stuff, so the bike's a little bit different to PBMs as well. So I think that'll be good. And they've got a mega crew in there.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Bridewell's the little dark horse.
I've got one more question. I don't know if you think of one.
I've only got one more question.
And I'll go. What's the biggest regret, racing wise?
Oh, you twat! I'll have to think.
Was that yours?
Easy that for me.
Go on.
15, we signed Hutchie to do the TT.
Yeah.
We did a deal with MV that we would get Clazelle's bike to do the TT. We went to collect the bike with Hutchie and Spanner to go and collect the bike from World Supers. And the team hadn't brought the bike to the UK for us. And then there was a massive row between the hierarchy of MV Racing and the owner of MV Augusta. We never got the bike. We ended up building a bike here. It was on Kit Electronics, which was garbage at the time. So it blew up itself at Northwest, and he then went and rode for Grant and did 2 with Keith and did the double on the Supersport that year.
Right.
So that's and it's actually in Hutchie's book as well. But that is my biggest regret in racing, was that we didn't get the bike we were promised by MV.
Yeah,
for him. But when he was coming back, he was so hungry. Everything was, for me, it was that perfect moment to get in on a bike, and it never happened. And I know it's a regret for him as well, because he wanted to be the guy that won with MV. Because I think there's still you love the roads. If you look at Ago, and I'm good friends with Agostini, and you speak to him, if you could get an MV at a TT again, I think it's a big thing.
Yeah, the way you're talking previous, it's the future's bright, the future's porn. I mean, MV. Go on then.
It's hard. I don't really. The only one that really springs to mind is
that you don't live in Essex, 7 doors down.
Yeah. No, the only one that springs to mind really is 2012, when I was my last year with Smiths. I just went P1 in FP2 on the Friday, and I saw that I'd done a good time, so I slowed down. And it was a damp sort of session, and I was on literally a slow down lap, and I looked behind me and I hit a wet patch high sided and snapped my ankle. So it was a bit of more of a stupid moment than a regretful one, but that took me about 4 or 5 months to get over because I completely crushed the joint bone. And at first they was going to fuse it because I really did damage my ankle just for being an idiot, from looking over my shoulder, going around a corner and hitting a wet patch. So yeah, that's probably the stupidest thing I've ever done, shall we say?
One thing that's just spring to mind as well, which I would love to ask you about. I know you went over to do the Daytona 200 at least once. I don't know if you've been twice with Stapleford, and it's something that we've talked about, and I would absolutely love to do it. Just to take it off the box, 1 year I would love to go over and do it. What was it like as an experience? Very,
very good. If you can do it, I'd say do it, because you know, I know all the circuits are completely different on telly, and it doesn't do it justice. But you literally cannot walk up the banking; it is that steep. But the feeling, you'll never get it in the world. It's such a good week because there's so many bikers from the US. Like, it's called Bike Week as well. They've got so much stuff going on. Supercross, Speedway. It's such a good week, but it's such a good experience to do. You know, we went with an uncompetitive bike, a bit unprepared because we didn't know really to expect, but. It's a very good experience.
And that's on the 600. You can only do it on the 600.
Yeah, well, they banned doing it on the 1000s because basically they got too quick and the tyres weren't lasting basically on the banking, because they was literally doing 215 miles an hour on the superbike around there, and the tyres were just literally disintegrating.
Do you get any support to go over?
We're in talks at the minute to try and take Jack over next year.
Right.
Well worth doing if you can get
I'd
a
love
chance.
to do it.
Where did
I've
you
got a
finish?
600.
We finished 11th in the first year, and it's more of a stock thing. I think the
rules have changed now. Yeah,
but anyway, the second
run full blown.
Our Supersport bike fits bang into the rules.
The second year I was really annoyed because we went with a bit more of a stock bike, and Luke Stelford took his bloody Supersport Triumph, and he done quite well. But if we'd known at the time, we'd have just taken our Triumph because it was a lot better bike than the R6 that we had at the time. But yeah, if you get the chance to do it, I'd say do it. Amazing.
Decent prize money as well.
$20,000 if you win.
It was 25
and a
Rolex this year.
So it's a Rolex Daytona for pole. You get a Rolex for pole, and you get a Rolex for the win.
So have you just made an arrangement with Jack there, just split
one
the
each
down the middle?
Yeah.
One each there, yeah. Simple as that. There, yeah.
That's
We
tremendous.
talked to Stuart about it yesterday because we've been talking about it a little while, haven't we? 'Cause we spoke to you about it, and there is a bit of a desire for us to go. So I think we will do it next year.
If you've got any room in the truck, I'll chuck my 600 in and we can go along. That'd be awesome. Please, mate.
I think he'll be probably after something quicker than yours. I might have to build him a second one.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time.
Hold on. My final question.
Oh, sorry.
Who would win in a fight? You or Phil Crow?
We're going to find out, aren't we?
Sure, we'll arm wrestle, and because we could do an arm wrestle, we'll get live on Chasin.
Do you smoke?
No.
Oh God, for Kobe like that, chain smoke in your face.
Well,
bring it on, big boy.
I tell you what, just before we go, we usually, because these go on YouTube, and we sometimes do little competitions. Have either of you got anything like sort of memorabilia or anything that you could give away to one of our listeners? Anything like that you can think of, like just something?
Probably somewhere in the depths of everything.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I could find something.
Have a think, and then if you comment on this video on YouTube,
who would win in the fight?
Who's your money on in the fight, and we'll send something out, like something signed or whatever. Big thanks to our sponsors, Colchester Kawasaki, and of course our patrons. And best of luck tomorrow. Hopefully we'll do both. And yeah.
Do you two really mean that?
Good save phrase.
We're just sitting here going, fuck off.
It's the Kawasaki thing, isn't it?
Yeah, good luck, mate. Can one of us
be the first Kawasaki show, yeah?
Jolly good.
Prick.
Take care, lads. Cheers.
Click, buy, deliver. With remote purchasing from the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasin the Racin.